12800 ISO is Sony's new weapon in low light conditions, and it has changed the industry, where we usually would have to add lights to something to be able to even get a shot without a lot of grain in a high ISO. We can now just shoot without any additional light in the room at a higher ISO, but still with great results. If you have the Sony FX3, FX6 or ZV-E1, you know what I'm talking about. But is 12800 really that good? And is it just as good on all of these cameras after all the latest firmware updates? And can 12800 replace lights and ISO 800? My name is Christian Warwick. I'm a full-time filmmaker and photographer. I'm working with some of the biggest brands in the world. And for 2 years in a row, my company, Wild Studio, has had a yearly revenue of more than $200,000, and I'm the only employee. In this video, I will share obviously my thoughts on the matter, but the sole purpose is for you as a viewer to see and judge yourself. We all look at these details differently, and to be honest, the differences might not be big enough for everyone to see or even notice. First, I think it's important to give you my take on using the 12800 setting in the first place. Let's get to it. With the Cine line, I am always using the Cine EI settings, and if you are not familiar with this, I recommend watching this easy explanation that I had in my last video. I have tried to make it a bit less complicated than most people, and I hope it works for you. As a professional filmmaker, I will avoid using 12800 in all situations I don't have to. Yes, it looks good, and we have much less grain than we used to. Dual base ISO is supposed to give you or us a free grain-free look, even at 12800. But in most of my films, I would like to control the light and make sure I can film at the lower base ISO, which is 800. Then there are times where I use the 12800 and it works great for those cases. That could be when filming outside in the dark, or simply when you are following someone in a real life documentary and you have no control of the lights and you just have to adjust to the surroundings. There are also times where I need to have a bigger focus area, and therefore my aperture values are at, say, 8. In such a situation, I will usually have it up, or I will up my ISO up to 12800. And for those situations, it has been a huge help having this ISO. So let's look and compare these cameras and also look at 12800 versus 800. And just an FYI, all cameras are up to date as of 25th of November 2024. It's worth mentioning that there's a big difference between the FX6 and the other two cameras. Because with the FX6, you can actually choose whether you want the noise reduction to be on in the camera, or if you want to work with it yourself in post. In short, you will get better quality overall by doing it in post, but you will technically get more noise in the file straight out of the camera. And the noise reduction can also take something away from the details in your shot, and this can't be undone if you have the reduction on in your camera. With the FX3 and the ZV-E1, you can't turn this off, and it might lead you to feeling like there's less grain coming out of the FX3 than the FX6. And the same goes for the ZV-E1. I used to be able to adjust the high ISO sensitivity on these cameras, but now I can't even find those settings again. So it could be me being completely useless, or they have actually removed those settings or that function from the camera. Let me know in the comments below if you have an opinion on this. I'm sorry to interrupt, but have you subscribed to my channel? Please do. I would really appreciate it. Now back to the video. It's important to emphasize that this difference in options most likely is based on the user these cameras are made for. The FX6 is a much more complex camera and leaves more to the user. The FX3 and especially ZV-E1 is more known as run and gun cameras, which speeds up the process of your workflow, and not having to treat noisy footage saves you a lot of time. And so for the target user, not being able to turn off noise reduction is most likely not a huge issue, because we will appreciate having noise-free, grain-free footage coming out of our cameras. Today I will be focusing on the files you get straight out of the camera, as we can't change this on these two cameras that we're comparing the FX6 with, and I will add my Boston Cine LUT, but no noise reduction in post. So what you see in these files, in this video, or in these shots, will be straight out of the camera, and that will give you more of a picture of how these cameras actually function and how you can compare them with each other. I still want to show you the differences with the settings on or off with the FX6. Here you have a shot at 800. As you can see, it looks sharp and it looks good. Then there's the 12,800 with noise reduction. And then lastly, the 12,800 without any noise reduction. Again, I want to emphasize that 800 should always be your preferred ISO, as this is the real ISO. So to the test. This is what I'm using, and these are the settings. I'm shooting with the Sony Grandmaster 2470 Mark II without any mist filters. All 800 shots are shot at f2.8, whilst the 12,800 shots are shot between f10 and f13. I had a more custom white balance on the FX6 when doing this, so please don't focus too much on the color differences between those cameras. I will show you the 800s too, just to show the differences in noise, because there is a significant difference even though the 12,800 is good. Let's first have a look at a shot in fairly well lit surroundings. I want to emphasize that this is not a great shot in itself, but I just want to show you what it looks like. At 800, the shots are nothing but gray, sharp and no visible noise. Not in the highlights, nothing in the midtones, and nothing in the shadows. But then we move up to the 12,800 and something changes. In the shadow area, which in this case is the rack behind me, you can see a tiny amount of noise. My face is also less sharp. In surroundings like this, you really have to study the differences to be able to see them. And there are no significant difference between the three cameras in that situation. But then if we move over to a bit of a darker look, what happens? Here's a reminder, by the way, to all YouTubers to remember to look at your face after having a yogurt for breakfast. Unfortunate to have a white mustache, white lips when filming. Oh well. Other than that, this is a pretty nice looking shot without any noise. The only thing lighting up my face is actually this sign behind me. And at 800, I can only find noise in the red little object behind me. But it's actually a little bit less noise with the FX6. Then 12,800. There is more noise in the background, and you can see that my face has more noise to it too. I can see a big difference between the cameras on this one, so that's good. But let me just emphasize and remind you, we shouldn't see any difference. It should be the same sensor, and thus it should be the same results. But what if we add a backdrop with a solid color? This is usually when you will see a lot of noise in the background. 800 looks good. I have close to no distance to the backdrop, which obviously is a big no-no in the film world. But for this example, it doesn't really matter. We're looking at grain here. The backdrop is made out of fabric, so the texture we see is not noise, but the backdrop itself. At 12,800, the backdrop has some more noise to it. And we can see that by the sand-shaped particles just moving around in the background. I could definitely use this for client work and I wouldn't be dropped by my clients, but I would not feel good about using this one knowing how much better the 800 looks. So far, I would say that I'm surprised by how much it affects my face. I was expecting the shadows to be affected, but the face is actually the one taking the biggest hit, especially the shadow sides. Keep in mind that I still haven't lit myself with anything else than that neon sign on the wall. These are just examples without any real artificial lights. 2 examples from now, we will add a proper key light and we'll see what it looks like. I would say that I grew up as a filmmaker watching all these videos with creators saying video is sponsored by. I remember feeling like they were all ads, but there was one brand where I didn't feel like it was an ad, it was more of like this sponsor kind of just funded the video that they were making. And I'm super proud to say that today, this video is sponsored by MusicBed. And with that, I'm able to give you a free trial of MusicBed. And honestly, in my opinion, it's the best music out there. I decided a long time ago that I will never have a partnership that I don't believe in, and I honestly do with MusicBed. So hit the link down below and you'll help me and you'll help yourself by getting the best music for your videos. I thought I'd use an example where we have more black in the frame just to see how the shadows are acting. I think we by now can say that 800 won't let us down. As long as you expose correctly, 800 is great. But what about 12,800? Just like the other shots we looked at, the noise is present in the shot. Not a whole lot. With this one, it almost becomes more obvious like the longer you look at it, which makes sense, but it still isn't enough to throw you off if you're not looking for it. And now to the part where I'm lighting myself. I have lit myself with the Aperture 300D, my favorite light, and the background is blacked out. I have brought down the shadows on purpose. I did this when filming, not in post, but I just really wanted to see what happens here. So even though there's a big no-no, like no details in the shadow, I just really want to see what happens with the shadows when they're dragged down so much and we're filming at 12,800. We also still have some mid-tones to compare, and at 800 we have a close to perfect image, honestly. What's interesting to see is that when we light the person, it almost becomes more obvious that there is noise at 12,800. On the shadow side of my face, you can see the noise. And this clearly affects the quality of my face. We can see the noise happening in the background too, without it being a huge issue. And if there's one thing I don't want to compromise on, it's the face and the noise on the person I'm filming, because then it just becomes so obvious. I think we can get away with a lot of noise in the background and it's okay. People will not really focus too much on it, but as soon as we have too much noise on our object, like the person that we're filming, then I think we're shit out of luck. So what happens if we shoot at 12,800 and add noise reduction in post with the FX6? So now I'm talking about shooting without it in the camera, but changing it in post. It definitely helps a lot, and we get rid of a lot of the noise in the background. And what's good about using this method is that you fully control this, or you have full control of it yourself. Reducing the noise can lead to a weird texture in skin and other surfaces, which you can't go back on if you have it built into your camera. But if you're doing it in post, you can adjust this more. You might see things that I don't see, you might be bothered by things that I don't see, and if you do, that's great. This is mostly just for you to spot the differences. It's for you to go in and have a look if you're questioning whether the sensors are actually the same, or if the 12,800 is as good as people are saying. What has been an eye-opener to me is the big difference between 800 and 12,800. I've had these cameras for years and I've been so blown away by the fact that the 12,800 works so well. So blown away that I haven't really seen how big of a difference there actually is. That being said, you can add some noise reduction to your shots in post, even with the processing in the camera, and you'll have high quality images. It's still good, it's just not as good. I'm happy to see that the three cameras with the same sensors actually are performing close to equally when it comes to noise. There was only one shot where I was like, I think the FX6 is performing a little bit better here. That could obviously just be because of the noise reduction that we have in the camera, and that technology works better in the FX6, which isn't too surprising knowing the FX6 is much more of a beast of a camera. But it does make me feel better about combining them and using each one of them where I see fit. And so I hope this was a helpful comparison to you and that you feel like you got something out of it. Please subscribe to my channel if you like this video, and see you in the next one.